English Each Day presents Think Before You Act, The Regrets of a 60-Year-Old Man. Hello. My name is Richard. I am 60 years old now, and I live alone in a small apartment in Chicago. Today, I want to share my story with you. It is not a happy story, but it is an honest one. Sometimes, the most important lessons come from our biggest mistakes. I had a good life once. I had a beautiful wife named Sarah, 2 wonderful children, a nice house, and a good job. But I lost many of these things because of poor choices I made. My story is about regret, and I hope you can learn from my mistakes. I met Sarah when we were both 22 years old. We were in college, studying business. She was smart, kind, and beautiful. I fell in love with her immediately. We dated for 2 years, and then we got married in a small ceremony with our families and close friends. Those first years together were wonderful. We were young and happy. We didn't have much money, but we had big dreams. We both found jobs after college, and we worked hard. Sarah became a marketing manager, and I worked in sales for a technology company. When we were 28, our daughter Emma was born. 3 years later, we had our son, Michael. Our family was complete, and I thought I was the luckiest man in the world. My job required me to travel often. I would visit different cities to meet with clients. At first, I missed Sarah and the children when I was away. I would call them every night and bring home small gifts for them. But as the years passed, something changed in me. I started to enjoy my time away from home. There were no crying children, no household chores, no arguments about money or time. When I was in different cities, I felt free. When I was 35, I met a woman named Jessica at a business conference in New York. She was younger than me and found my stories interesting. We had dinner together, and I enjoyed the attention she gave me. Before I left New York, we kissed. I told myself it was nothing serious, just a one-time mistake. But it wasn't a one-time mistake. It was the first step on a very bad path. Over the next 5 years, I created a second life for myself. When I traveled for work, I would meet different women. Sometimes these were brief encounters, other times, they lasted for months. I always told myself that what Sarah didn't know wouldn't hurt her. At home, I tried to be a good husband and father. I coached Michael's baseball team. I attended Emma's school plays. I brought Sarah flowers on our anniversary. On the surface, we looked like a happy family. But inside, I was living a lie. I became very good at hiding things, secret phone calls, unexplained expenses, stories about where I had been and who I had seen. Each lie made the next one easier. I convinced myself that I deserved these adventures. I worked hard, I provided for my family, so why shouldn't I have some fun? I didn't think about the damage I was doing to my marriage or to myself. When I was 45, my carefully built house of lies came crashing down. Sarah found messages on my phone from a woman I had been seeing in Boston. She confronted me late one night after the children were asleep. "Who is Diane?" she asked, her voice shaking. "And why is she texting you that she misses you?" I tried to lie at first, to say that Diane was a client. But Sarah didn't believe me. She had already checked my phone and found months of messages, pictures, and calls. I will never forget the look on her face that night, a mixture of shock, pain, and anger. It was the moment she realized that the man she had loved for 23 years was not the person she thought he was. I will never forget the look on her face that night, a mixture of shock, pain, and anger. "Is she the only one?" Sarah asked. I couldn't lie anymore. The weight of all my deceptions was too heavy. I told her the truth. No, Diane wasn't the only one. There had been many others over the years. Sarah didn't cry or scream. She just got very quiet, which was somehow worse. Then she asked me to leave the house that night. The next few months were the most painful of my life. Sarah asked for a divorce. I moved into a small apartment. We told the children together about our separation, but not the real reason. Emma was 17, and Michael was 14. They were old enough to sense that something bad had happened, but young enough to be deeply wounded by it. I expected them to be angry with me, but I wasn't prepared for their silence. Michael wouldn't speak to me when I came to visit. Emma would be polite but distant. I had not only betrayed my wife, I had betrayed my children too. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Sarah was fair about dividing our property and money, more fair than I deserved. We agreed to share custody of the children, but they chose to live with her most of the time. My colleagues at work found out about the divorce, and rumors started about why it happened. Some people who had once respected me now looked at me differently. I lost friends who took Sarah's side. My parents were disappointed in me. My brother told me I had been a fool. And he was right. That was 15 years ago. Since then, I have had a lot of time to think about my choices and their consequences. At first, I tried to blame others. I told myself that Sarah hadn't understood me, that my job had been too stressful, that the women I met had pursued me. But these were all excuses. The truth was simple: I had made selfish choices without thinking about how they would affect the people I loved. For a few years after the divorce, I continued my old behaviors. I dated younger women and avoided serious relationships. But it felt empty. The excitement that I had once felt was gone, replaced by a growing sense of regret. Slowly, I began to understand what I had lost. Not just my marriage, but my integrity. Not just my home, but the trust of my children. Not just Sarah's love, but my own self-respect. 10 years ago, I started trying to rebuild my relationships with Emma and Michael. It was not easy. They were adults now, with their own lives. Emma was in college, studying to become a teacher. Michael was working and had a serious girlfriend. I wrote them letters, apologizing for the pain I had caused our family. I didn't make excuses. I took responsibility for my actions. I told them I would always love them and would be there for them, even if they couldn't forgive me. Michael didn't respond to my first few letters. Emma wrote back, saying she needed time. I respected their feelings and gave them space. Gradually, we began to reconnect. Short phone calls became longer conversations. Awkward coffee meetings became more comfortable dinners. They never fully trusted me again, but they allowed me back into their lives in a limited way. 5 years ago, Emma got married. She invited me to the wedding, though I didn't walk her down the aisle. That honor went to Sarah's brother, who had been there for Emma when I wasn't. But I was grateful just to be included. 3 years ago, Michael and his girlfriend had a baby boy, making me a grandfather. I see my grandson once a month. When I hold him, I think about all the moments I missed with my own children because of my poor choices. Sarah remarried 8 years ago. Her husband, David, is a kind man who treats her well. Sometimes when I drop off gifts for my grandson, I see them together. They look happy. I never apologized properly to Sarah. By the time I understood the depth of my mistakes, she had moved on with her life. I didn't want to reopen old wounds just to make myself feel better. But if I could talk to her now, I would tell her how sorry I am. Not just for the affairs, but for the years of lies. For breaking the trust she had placed in me. For not valuing what we had built together. I would tell her that she deserved better, and that I'm glad she found happiness again. So, what have I learned from all of this? First, that actions have consequences, often bigger than we can imagine. One bad choice can start a chain reaction that destroys the things we value most. Second, that honesty is not just about telling the truth. It's about living truthfully. The lies I told Sarah were terrible, but the lies I told myself were worse. Third, that we must think about how our actions affect others. My choices hurt the people I claim to love. What kind of love is that? And finally, that while some mistakes can be forgiven, not all damage can be repaired. I have rebuilt some relationships, but they will never be what they could have been. Some trust, once broken, cannot be fully restored. I'm 60 years old now. I live alone. I have a decent job, but not the career I might have had. I see my children and my grandson occasionally, but I missed many years with them that I can never get back. When I look in the mirror, I see a man who had everything and didn't appreciate it until it was gone. If you are young and starting your life journey, please learn from my mistakes. Think before you act. Consider the consequences of your choices, not just for today but for years to come. Protect the trust that others place in you, because once it's broken, it may never be the same. And remember that a moment of pleasure or excitement is not worth a lifetime of regret. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you make better choices than I did.
Do you like the story?
The trust that
Subscribe
others
to
place
English
in you,
each day for more
because once it's
heart-melting
broken,
romances
it
and
may
to practice
never be the
English
same.
with engaging storytelling.
And remember
Thank you
that
for
a
watching.
moment of
Do
pleasure
you like the
or
story?
excitement is not
Subscribe
worth
to
a
English
lifetime
each
of
day for
regret.
more heart-melting romances
Thank you
and
for
to
listening
practice
to my
English
story.
with engaging storytelling.
I hope it
Thank you
helps
for
you
watching.
make better
Do you
choices
like the
than I
story?
did.
Subscribe to